Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and with the WoW's 20th anniversary announcement, we also find out that this patch, 11.05, which is primarily a patch just for the WoW's 20th anniversary, is also going to feature a significant number of class changes, with plenty of major revamps, and we've been able to cover at least one of those classes so far, which is the Hunter, and the awesome changes coming to the Dark Ranger, but there's actually other classes on our list of revamps as well, and I wanted to specifically focus on one of the most fun classes that I've had a blast playing with between the alpha, the beta, and the current live release of the War Within, which is the Shaman, as both elemental and enhancement, with slight adjustments for restoration, just very tiny changes, but both of those DPS specs of that Shaman class are seeing some significant improvements, from the visual changes brought in by the new Ascendant form to a variety of talent adjustments, which will help expand on the build variety. But right before that, if you guys want to see more videos like these covering War Within, like future builds and such, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. Otherwise, let's dive right into all of the talent revamps coming to the class of the Shaman. So everything we talk about in this video is not available over on the live realms just yet. Everything here is all the new stuff that we can actually test out over in the public testing realms for the future update of 11.05, otherwise known as WoW's 20th anniversary. Now, they actually have a couple of things for this build done already, such as the what's new. This is the old version, but they have a newer one already done for this update. And usually by the time they get the what's new splash screen done, that usually means that the patch should be coming out sooner than later. So this thing could be releasing way sooner than many of us have expected. They don't have an actual release date just yet, but as soon as we know something, we'll definitely make a video on it. As for the actual Shaman changes, there's a lot of things to take a look at. I want to first start off with the generalized section, then talk about the hero specs specifically, and then the individual class specs from elemental to enhancement, and a couple of things they've added for restoration, though not nearly as much. First of all, with the generalized changes is going to be new Ascendance forms. You have the Fire Ascendant, the Air Ascendant, and the Water Ascendant, which are all slightly different in a few little details here and there, but they're supposed to be an enhanced version of the Shaman that really have mastered the elements. You float on water, so like as a character as you're floating, if you're above water, you'll literally float on it, and it also enhances your abilities in a variety of different ways that is unique to each and every one of the specs. There's a lot of discussion going on, like whether they should change them a little bit. Some people, I'm not a big fan of like the hair, how it kind of stands up, but I wonder how the model will actually evolve over the next few builds. Besides the new Ascendance forms, they also got a couple of more generalized changes, such as the raid buff of Sky Fury actually having its mana cost reduced from 4% to 1%, which is kind of nice. Talents such as your Mana Spring no longer have an aura that now fills one of the buff spots for your character. It just naturally passively acts in the background without having to give you a buff for you to track or anything like that. And the ability of Lava Burst has seen apparently a significant visual increase. You can kind of see it from the hands itself, the actual lava that you invoke, but in the model itself does now look like a bolt of lava instead of like this like earthy lava combined together. It's just a bolt of lava. I do like it. I think it looks good. It's a lot more visually different than what they've done for Hunters, where they said rapid fire now looks different, and I can't tell the difference at all. This Lava Burst definitely looks a lot different. And apparently Primordial Waves icon has been, I guess I can bring it up here too, has been changed for all three specs. Ever since Primordial Wave is less of this shadowy ability, now it's meant to be this elemental ability, and now it has a bit more of this like elemental fusion combination of fire and frost, and I guess other elements combined together as well. As for the actual hero talent changes, we have a couple of more generalized changes, starting with the Farseer. For Farseer, they wanted to make sure that the elemental blasts that are obtained from your ancestors will now be more than likely to prioritize your recently attacked target if at all possible. So instead of attacking a random target, they will try to prioritize whoever you were attacking last, which is good for that focus damage. Also, generally when it comes to AoE content, ancestors will prefer to use Chain Lightning against targets that you've recently hit with Chain Lightning or with Earthquake, which again is a little bit better for priority damage. Ancestors apparently are also now summoned with armor, so instead of being like with robes, they'll have more historic shaman sets. So I'm assuming that as, let's say, you summon more ancestors, you probably get a little bit more variety in the sets. So as I summon 2 ancestors, they have different sets. Yeah, so they're just basically rock some of the more raid sets from shamans, and there'll be a little bit of variety. That's kind of cool. It's just a very unique flavor thing. Though, while Farseer is getting a couple of quality of life upgrades, Stormbringer is actually getting some fundamentally big changes, and they've adjusted their talent tree with positions of a couple of these talents in slightly different spots than before, and like certain talents like Arc Discharge, no longer a choice node with alternative options, further cleaning up the overall Stormbringer gameplay, with a few new talent options such as a lightning conduit. You have a chance to get randomly struck by lightning, increasing your movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds. This effect is increased by 100% in outdoor content. You also call down a thunderstorm on top of you whenever you reincarnate. So this gives you like a lot of the utilitarian mechanics of the Stormbringer, but in a little bit more of an RNG fashion. On the flip side, you have the choice node with Electroshock, where Tempest increases your movement speed by 20% for 5 seconds. So you have random lightning strikes and the thunderstorm when you res, or you have Electroshock for a little bit more consistency. So it's going to be interesting which one is actually going to be better. I guess it depends on how often Lightning Conduit procs. On the left-hand side, we have Talent Choice, which is a little bit different, with Storm Swell, where Tempest now grants you Mastery for 6 seconds. This applies for both Enhancement as well as Elemental. This is now a choice node together with Supercharge, where Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have a 50% chance to cause an additional elemental overload, which for Enhancement reads as a Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have a 35% chance to refund to Maelstrom weapon stacks instead. Defensively, we got a couple of new additions with Nature's Protection redesigned. Now it allows Lightning Shield to simply reduce all damage you take by 3%, which is a little bit better and a lot more a passive option than having it to play off of your Tempest ability. On the flip side, we now have a different choice node with Surging Currents. Whenever you cast Tempest, you gain Surging Currents, increasing the effectiveness of your next Chain Heal or Healing Surge by 20% up to 100%. So if you want to be able to play into this Healy type of playstyle, you could use a couple of Tempests and then have a better Chain Heal or a Healing Surge in order to help yourself recover, which can be pretty good. Like the choice between a better heal or defensives is actually a bit more of an impactful option. Some of the last few notes that aren't in the blue post is Arc Discharge, one of the more exciting and one of the best talents of Enhancement and Elemental, which usually is a choice with another talent, which is pretty irrelevant. But with Arc Discharge, they've now made it a solo talent that has more of a guaranteed consistent gameplay. Tempest makes the next 2 Chain Lightnings or Lightning Bolt spells instant cast. The same thing goes for Enhancement without consuming Maelstrom and deal 40% increased damage. So that's really good. I feel like it's going to play better off of the Tempest ability for both Enhancement as well as Elemental, because you kind of play this talent anyway for the Chain Lightnings as is. So have it apply for Chain or Lightning Bolt is huge. But also the capstone, Awakening Storms, has been adjusted for Enhancement specifically. It now scales with Enhance's Mastery, so it has some scaling potential, but the baseline damage has been reduced by 35%. I think this is still overall a buff, especially if you go into a Mastery heavy type of Enhancement Shaman. That's going to be the Stormbringer and the Farseer, the general changes. Now, let's get onto the Elemental, which saw a lot of positional changes for a few talents. Like, you're still starting off with Earthshock and Elemental Blast. You're still having to pick your Ellie, but now Stormkeeper is a little bit higher moved up. You have a couple of new choice nodes here. Ascendants have been moved from left side to the middle side to be kind of more of a corner or center stone type of talent. You still have Primordial on the right hand side, so some things are different. Some things are the same though. Out of these choice nodes though, off of Stormkeeper, you do have a new choice node that plays off of Stormkeeper, either Fury of the Storms, where you get to summon a Lightning Elemental upgraded to 12-second duration, or Herald of the Storms, where casting Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning reduces the cooldown of Stormkeeper by 2 seconds. Now, Herald of the Storms definitely benefits the Lightning build, but the Lava build's got a new talent called Erupting Lava, which increases the duration of Flame Shocks by 6 seconds. The Lava Burst now consumes up to 3 seconds of a Flame Shock, instantly dealing that damage. The Lava Burst overloads benefit this at 50% effectiveness, so it allows you to play into a heavy fire build and integrate Flame Shocks in order to amp up the damage of your Lava Burst, which is kind of awesome. From the talent of Lightning Rod, we actually get a couple of new talent options such as Charge Conduit, which increases the duration of Lightning Rod to make those lightning talents a little bit better, and increases the damage of Lightning Rod bonus by 25%, making the ability even stronger for a lightning focused build. A little bit above Lightning Rod, we have a new talent of Earth Shatter, which increases the Earth Shock and Earthquake damage by 8%, and the stab bonuses granted by Elemental Blast by 25%, so a little bit more on-demand damage or better stat management. Then we can move on to the big talent of Ascendance, which has been redesigned. Previously, Ascendance was more of a lava and fire-based lightning type of talent, but they wanted to make it something that works better for all the elements, and that is something you'll notice with Elemental Shaman, is few talents have been reworked so that they function for all the elements. So you could go a little bit of lightning, a little bit of lava, maybe a little bit of ice too, and all of those elements should be able to have more of a cohesive playstyle. Ascendance allows you to transform into a flame ascendant for 18 seconds, instantly casting Flame Shock at 100% effectiveness lava burst at up to 6 nearby targets. So it's an easy way for you to spread shocks and lava burst everything around you. While ascended, it no longer buffs the critical strike damage of your lava burst and functions off of lava burst. Instead, it amplifies your mastery of elemental overload, increasing its damage by 150%. And all spells affected by a mastery elemental overload cause 1 additional elemental overload. So if you're looking to play into more of a lightning-based shaman, like you will spread up all your flame shocks, get a primordial up and running, ascendance to get a big lava burst going, and then from there, if you want to spare a bunch of chain lightnings, those all will benefit from your ascendance ability. So it allows you to benefit from all of those different talents that can be amplified by a master by quite a bit. And ascendance overall becomes a big burst cooldown no matter what type of a shaman build you choose to play into. Not only that, but they also updated your mastery of overload. Not only does it increase the damage of all of your elemental and physical abilities, but apparently it's also supposed to increase the damage of your pet abilities as well. It doesn't quite necessarily state that in the tooltip, but for your elementals like your storm ally or fire ally, it's supposed to increase their damage as well, which will make pet builds even stronger. Since they're weaving in the fire abilities into the lightning build, they also want to find a way to weave lightning to help fire as well. So Storm Elemental gets a little bit more standardized where while it's active as you cast your abilities, you don't increase your casting speeds of abilities anymore. Instead, you increase your haste. It only now stacks up to 4 times, but additional haste can benefit both lightning as well as fire abilities, but could also benefit things such as the work off of haste, such as your flame shock, for example, so you can get more regular ticks of your flame shock, for instance. There's also a few more talent modifications, such as deeply rooted elements now proccing. Instead of off of your lava burst, they wanted to proc off of earth shock, elemental blast, or earthquake, where all those abilities have a chance to activate ascendance, which again, like I said before, makes ascendance less of a lava burst and fire based spell, but rather more of an encompassing spell that both builds can fully utilize. Also, there was a bit more support added for the ability of Frost Shock, like increasing his damage by 30%. And also, if you're playing around Ice Fury, now abilities such as Lightning Bolt, Lava Burst, or Chain Lightning, with the 2 lightning abilities included, all of those have a chance to replace your next Frost Shock with Ice Fury. Though instead of giving you 2 stacks of Ice Fury, you only got 1, but a single Ice Fury now deals a decent bit of damage and now cleaves up to 4 nearby targets. So it has a bit more of a natural cleave involved in it, still making the talent and the spell fairly effective, but kind of adjusting for the increased numbers of procs that you're going to get with more spells being able to proc the Ice Fury effect. Basic spells such as your Flame Shock, your Frost Shock, and Primordial Wave now generate through Maelstrom, as well as the talent of like Magma Totem now generates a Maelstrom when you use the ability, which plays around with the resources a little bit better. When it comes to tuning, there's been a couple more adjustments, like since your mastery now benefits both Storm Ally and Fire Ally, apparently their duration has been reduced to baseline 20 seconds instead of 30 seconds. And to help wrap up the elemental section, since they're trying to create a way where fire and lightning and frost and lava and all these different elements can exist together, they want to make Farseer a little bit better in that regard, because Farseer is very lava burst, fire heavy rather than other elements. So to make Farseer a little bit better synergized with other types of elements and abilities, the talent of routine communication can now summon up and call forth ancestors by using abilities not just Lava Burst, but also Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Ice Fury, and even Frost Shock, though the chance of it has been decreased to 5% instead of 8%. Now, Elemental was a lot to cover, but we still got Enhancement to get through, which got quite a number of changes as well. There's going to be spec changes, but also totemic changes specifically for Enhancement to make this playstyle just a little bit more preferential, or at least better preferential compared to its current state right now on the live realms. So out of the new talents for Enhancement, they actually added a way for you to passively summon feral spirits with flowing spirits. You can either play with Witch Doctor's Ancestry, which increases the chance of you to gain a stack of Maelstrom Weapon, and whenever you spend Maelstrom Weapon, you reduce the cooldown of your feral spirits. They've actually nerfed this talent a little bit from 2 seconds per stack of Maelstrom spend to 1 second, so cooldown reduction of wolves is not going to be as great, but they also give you a passive option with Flowing Spirits to summon wolves. They don't really give you like a chance of or rather than really give you like any tooltip information regarding what is the chance of your abilities to summon a feral spirit. It's just a chance. Like, is it 2%? Is it 8%? Is it 12%? Like, is there a specific number? And I would like to see something like that in the future. Because right now, hitting train dummies, I don't see myself summoning nearly as many spirits compared to the nerfed version of the Witch Doctor's talent. So I don't really know if it's working properly. It is still PTR. A lot of the Enhancement Shaman stuff isn't fully implemented yet, but this one definitely does seem to be weaker at a first glance. They also added a new talent, which I don't think is in, because I keep looking for it, but it's not here, but it's called Lightning Spark. It's supposed to be somewhere in your talent tree. I guess it just wasn't implemented in this build, but it's supposed to be a very unique talent though, because it plays around the AoE playstyle of Enhancement Shaman. So since we can take a look at the talent, I'll explain what it's meant to do. So for Enhancement, it's meant to be Chain Lightning marks enemies with Lightning Spark, and Lightning Sparks have it, or rather Chain Lightning has a chance to make an Flame Shock become a Tremor Shock, which does instant damage to 6 Lightning Spark targets, shocking them for nature damage, and also applying Flame Shock to the targets. So it doesn't seem to be that this is a mechanic that's in the game yet, but hopefully it will be, because it sounds an exciting way for you to be able to weave Flame Shocks as well as Chain Lightnings together, and I think that all in all could be pretty cool in general. Now, a talent that we actually can take a look at is going to be Molten Thunder, where the cooldown of Sundering has been reduced by 10 seconds, but it can no longer incapacitate, which gives it a slightly better profile. Instead of being a 45-second cooldown, it's 30 seconds, and lines up with most of your other Shaman-based abilities. Storm Surge also has a small chance to reset the cooldown of Sundering, which could potentially be exciting. The ability of Ice Strike has been redesigned a little bit in order to help reduce some of the bloat of Shaman-based abilities, or at least rotational abilities, where Ice Strike now, one of your spin Maelstrom weapon, your Frost Shock has a chance to become an Ice Strike, which does a bit of like reducing rotational clutter, especially with Magician Ice Strike, Frost Shock, and playing around an Elementalist type of builds. The Talent of Doom Winds also has been updated, where you now unleash a devastating storm around the Shaman, which deals storm strike damage every 1 second to nearby targets for 8 seconds, while increasing the chance to activate Wind Fury weapon by 200% and the damage of Wind Fury by 10%, which will hopefully give it a little bit more instantaneous and AoE component in order to make the ability a better burst cooldown. The Talent of Thorns of Vacation has been slightly adjusted, which has a bit of a weird tooltip as you can see, but what it primarily does is it causes deeply rooted elements, whether you're playing the deeply rooted elements or the actual use of Ascendance. It either reduces the cooldown, and right now the tooltip is a little all over the place, but it's supposed to either reduce the cooldown of Ascendance by 60 seconds, turning it from a 3-minute profile to a 2-minute profile ability, or increase the duration of rooted elements Ascendance proc by 2 seconds. It no longer is supposed to increase the damage of Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt. So the current tooltip doesn't quite exactly display what it's supposed to be. And it looks like Enhancement Shaman is just overall still a work in progress over on the PTR. And lastly, the passive damage of your Flame Tongue weapon is actually being increased by 20%, which on its own doesn't seem like much, but with what Flame Tongue can do and how it interacts specifically with Totemic, which is the hero spec that's really being worked on as of this build, is going to be more significant. First things first, the Talent of Reactivity has been redesigned, and what they did is took the Searing Volley effect with the Searing Totem and kind of just combined it together into the Lively Totems talent altogether, so Lively Totems on its own as a talent gains far more value than ever before. With Reactivity, while Hot Hand is active, Lava Lash now shatters the ground, causing a smaller Sundering at 30% effectiveness. The Sundering cannot incapacitate targets, but allows you to weave in Sunderings as part of your basic gameplay. They've also added a little bit more buffs towards Imbued Mastery, where they increase the chance for Wind Fury to proc by 10%, increases damage by 15%, and when Flame Tongue weapon triggers from Wind Fury weapon attacks, it has a chance to gather a whirl of flame around the target, dealing its damage to all nearby enemies 3 additional times, which is a nice way for you to weave in both Flame Tongue and Wind Fury weapon accordingly. Now, majority of totemic changes are going to come from actually dropping your Surging Totem, which deals some Flame Shock damage on its own every few seconds, but it also grants you Whirling Elements buff. And those 3 elements have been adjusted as of this build. With Whirling Fire, your next Lava Lash or Fire Nova grants you Hot Hands for 8 seconds immediately. So as soon as you drop the totem, you want to Lava Lash as soon as possible and start playing around with the guaranteed procs of Hot Hand, which is going to have some rotational impacts, but gives you a little bit more, I guess, guarantees behind the Hot Hands and Lava Lash type of gameplay. The Air element, Whirling Air, your next Storm Strike or Wind Strike deals 25% increased damage. That's actually adjusted completely. Your next Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, or Elemental Blast is supposed to unleash 3 Surging Bolts at your totem. What Surging Bolts do, they increase the damage of your current active Surging Totem by 10% per bolt, and it kind of causes the totem to rebound that Surging Bolt back at a nearby enemy, dealing additional nature damage. And lastly, the Whirling Earth also has been adjusted. Instead of functioning based off of earthy spells or nature spells, instead the direct damage of your Flame Shock is increased by 300%, making it more of a rotation ability you want to use, not just a dot you want to maintain. Also, Flame Shocks will be applied to 5 nearby targets instantly. So this changes the way you use rotational abilities a little bit, where you are going to be more Lava Lash, Flame Shock, and Fire Heavier as a totemic enhancement shaman. And you'll use your lightning based spells such as Lightning Bolt or Elemental Blast, or rather your elemental abilities, in order to proc based off of your totem, which should hopefully make it a little bit more competitive. There's always been a little bit of awkwardness when it comes to using totemic and all the different gameplay components that it offers compared to Stormbringer, which kind of weaves into rotation a little bit better. So I wonder if more tuning needs to be done in order to make totemic better, or if these changes are going to be enough to make shamans want to consider totemic. But there's definitely some significant changes being done to try to make that playstyle a little bit more appealing. Lastly, we have the Spectre Restoration Shaman, sorta. There is a new talent, but it doesn't seem like they were able to implement it just yet on the PTR, so maybe on a hotfix, but you really just got one visual change and one talent change. The new talent is supposed to be Coalescing Water, which plays around your Chain Heal ability, where Chain Heal increases the initial healing of your next Riptide by 75%, stacking up to 2 times, so nice interaction between Chain Heal and Riptide, while also Chain Heal's mana cost is reduced with that talent by 15%, and the talent of Reactive Warding will now function off of it, allowing Earth Shield and Water Shield to consume charges of the shield's second faster, which allows Reactive Warding to be even more reactive than before, integrates Chain Heal as part of the basic gameplay with its mana cost reduction, and the Riptide synergy I think could be very interesting for some big synergized burst healing in some situations. I feel like they've really been trying to make Chain Lightning, or Chain Heal rather, from expansion to expansion, a lot better of a tool for rested shamans. And some expansions it's a button you don't want to press, and other expansions it is a button you want to press constantly as your priority ability. So it's cool that they're trying to at least give it more interactions that could potentially weave into other builds as well. Finally, as a Totemic Restoration Shaman, when you drop down your totems, it has a lively totem effect where once you drop the totem chain heals to a nearby ally. They changed it so instead of having the chain heal apply from the totem, it now kind of works off of the shaman instead. This is just a visual change. I guess there were some confusions whether the chain heals from these totems with lively totems works off of all of your talents the buff chain heal or not, and they wanted to make sure that yes, the chain heal procs from the shaman, all the talents the buff chain heal are applied to those free procs of chain heal, so it's more of a visual thing more than anything. But with that, that's going to be literally all of the different shaman changes that have happened so far on the PTR. And with that, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video, and hopefully you enjoyed. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very, very much appreciate it. Join the Discord community to discuss all of the newest shaman changes coming up in the future build. Let me know all your thoughts about everything that we talked about so far in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.